Okay, students, today we'll discuss about clinical pharmacy and we will see about what we are going to discuss in further chapters and how it will be and what are the topics we will discuss, right? Okay, students, today we'll discuss about clinical pharmacy. So today we will see what is clinical pharmacy and what we are going to learn in upcoming classes, right? So before going into clinical pharmacy, first we will see what is pharmacy. I think by this time you'll be having an idea about what is pharmacy. So generally when we speak about pharmacy, right, generally the pharmacy is a thing, or we can say it's a science which deals with compounding or dispensing or preparing medicines for administration to the people, right? That is pharmacy. They were nowhere directly linked to provide patient care by going by doing bedside counseling or by going to the wards and all those things, right? But when we see clinical pharmacy, so what is a clinical pharmacy? So clinical pharmacy is a service, or we can say clinical pharmacy is a branch of pharmacy where pharmacists will promote pharmacists will promote rational drug therapy that is safe, appropriate, and cost effective, right? So if you want me to speak in simple terms, what is clinical pharmacy? So clinical pharmacy is a branch of pharmacy where the pharmacist, what we call as clinical pharmacist, will be involved in providing a patient care directly. Means he will go to the wards along with doctors. He will speak to the patients. He will ask what are his problems, or we can see what any whether he can do any changes or not, like providing bedside counseling, patient counseling, like which medicine to be taken, how or when it should be taken, right? Or any other things where we need certain interventions by clinical pharmacists, like is there any drug interactions or how a drug should be taken, right? So all these things together we called as a clinical pharmacy, a clinical pharmacist. So clinical pharmacist has n number of roles and we have a lot of scope for it. So before going into topic, so first we will see what is a definition of clinical pharmacy, right? We have different definitions by different books and different organizations. So one of those definitions which we'll generally use is clinical pharmacy has been defined as a service provided by the pharmacist to promote rational drug therapy. So what is rational drug therapy? Rational drug therapy means right time, right dose, right route in a right manner at a right time, right? So that is rational drug therapy. So a person or a clinical pharmacist is required to promote a rational drug therapy that is safe for the patient, appropriate for the disease condition, for the exact disease condition what he's suffering with, and cost effective. Cost effective means when we see nowadays in the market we have similar drug by prepared by or manufactured by different companies at different prices. Take a general example of your normal saline solutions, which you will be seeing in inpatient wards. So what happens? We have different companies like Nirlife, Baxter, etc., etc. So when you see the cost of 100 ml normal saline between Nirlife and Baxter, the cost is different. Even though the efficacy is same, the cost is different. So clinical pharmacist has a role in making it as a cost effective also. So that's how we can differentiate between pharmacist and clinical pharmacist, right? So if you want to see the other definition by AACP, right? So AACP means American College of Clinical Pharmacy. So they define clinical pharmacy as an area of pharmacy concerned with science and practice of rationalized medicine use. So whichever may be the organization giving this definition of clinical pharmacy, the major motto is providing patient care in a or in an appropriate way for giving rationalized medication use or rationalized medicine use, right? So going into the topic, and this academic year, in this year, we are going to discuss in this topic we have 10 chapters, right? So coming to first chapter, so generally when you see first chapter of any subject, generally we'll be having this introduction topic, right? So first we'll be seeing definition, development, and scope of clinical pharmacy. Like, so we already seen the definition. So in upcoming classes, we'll be seeing development and scope, right? Why there was a need of developing clinical pharmacy position or a profession. So generally we had a pharmacist, but why there was advancement or development of pharmacy to clinical pharmacy? Why there was a need? What was the need which make people develop a separate profession called as clinical pharmacist? We'll see that one. And what is the scope of clinical pharmacy also we'll be seeing. What is the scope of clinical pharmacy also we'll be seeing. Coming to second chapter, activities of clinical pharmacists. So what even the activities? Nothing but roles or responsibilities. What are the functions of clinical pharmacist? So whichever these blue dots, whichever whatever you can see here, those are only in restriction to our curriculum or our subject. So apart from this, a clinical pharmacist has n number of roles or infinity roles, right? So for now, we'll stick to the curriculum. So one among the first thing is drug therapy monitoring. So what do you mean by drug therapy monitoring? So here the pharmacist will check the medicine, whatever has been given to the patient was appropriate or not. So that is drug therapy monitoring. What? The medicine given to the patient was appropriate or not. Okay. So for saying that one, we cannot simply say, right, okay, doctor has given this medicine, this might be appropriate, or this is appropriate, right? So to say that one, we should do some work, some activities. So some among those activities, if you want to say the drug therapy was appropriate, the drug therapy is appropriate. So first thing what you will see is medication chart review. Means you will be seeing the drugs given was appropriate or not, right? Means there was any previous allergies to the patient, and again same drug has been given or not, right? And dose calculations has been given or not, or the drug dose was appropriate for the patient or not, those things. That is medication chart review, right? And next one is clinical review. Clinical review means, so after giving these drugs, day 1 or day 2 or day 3, the symptoms or the disease condition of the patient has been reduced or not, right? So whenever you are giving a medicine, if you want to say the medicine is appropriate, the symptoms of the patient should be reduced. Then only you can say the treatment was appropriate. So that is clinical review. And third one is pharmacist interventions. So if you do the about two works, whatever you have seen, like medical chart review and clinical review, there you are intervening, right? You are doing certain work there. That is pharmacist intervention, right? So this is one function of clinical pharmacist. And next one is ward round participation. Like I said earlier, nowadays, not only nowadays, in developed countries, it has started a long time. And even in India, it has been started a long time ago. So ward round participation. So what I mean by this? So generally, we know the doctor will go to the ward rounds, he will speak to the patients and all. So now, what is the role of clinical pharmacist here is, the clinical pharmacist will go along with doctor to the ward rounds, right? And he will be asking the patient certain questions. Why? Because when we see the population of India, 130 crores, so we don't have at least 10 crores of, I don't think we have at least 10 crores or 20 crores of, or 10 crores of doctors, right? So what happens, doctors may not be having, I'm not saying they don't have, they have, all the doctors are good. So what will happen is, so sometimes they don't have time to speak to some minute points which make a big difference. So to fill up those minute points, we need a clinical pharmacist to fill up those points. So I will share one of my experience when I was in internship. So what happened? So I was posted in general medicine department, where I was doing this drug therapy monitoring, where I have seen a patient has been prescribed with paracetamol 3 grams through IV, and 1815 grams through oral. So the dose is becoming 4.8 grams. But the general maximum upper limit of paracetamol per person in a person who don't have liver problem is 4 grams. That is the maximum dose a person can take per day. If it is more than 4 grams, it leads to hepatotoxin, means liver problem, right? So that is one of the intervention I have done. I was in ward rounds and I have checked this one. So like this, the clinical pharmacist will go for the wardrooms and he will do the works, right? And next one is ADR management. ADR management means adverse drug reaction, right? So we have similar terms here like adverse drug reaction, adverse drug event, side effect, pharmacological effect and all. So in detail about we'll see in upcoming classes. Here adverse drug reaction means a reaction which happened, which is noxious, means which is a danger to the patient, which happened to the patient, along with therapeutic action in many of the conditions. That is adverse drug reaction. So when you use certain drug, so so what happens? The patient will be showing certain reactions or certain effects, which was noxious, means which was dangerous to the patient. So how can a pharmacist will fit into this? How can we solve those ADRs? Okay, that is one of the other function of the pharmacist. And next one is drug information and poison information, right? So now what is drug information and poison information? Nothing but providing appropriate, concise, clear information about the drug use to the people. So here to the people means whoever asks you, whoever asks you means like it can be a patient, it can be a patient caretaker, it can be a doctor, it can be a nurse, it can be a general public, anyone can ask. So providing information about the drug and poisons. Okay, that is drug and poison information. Next one is medication history interview. So what is medication history or medication history interview? So medication history means about what medication the patient was taking, right? How can we overcome the usage of similar drugs? Similar drugs means, supposing patient has taken certain X2. Take example of your paracetamol. Okay, patient has taken paracetamol of 325 mg for fever previously. So it has worked for the patient for the first time, right, for the child. And okay, consider first personal adult. Okay, so 325 mg was applied for that person first case in first time or 1 month. So what happened after that? There was reoccurrence of fever where the patient has the same dose of 325 mg, where the drug was not working at the dose, means 325 was not working for the patient, right? So what happens when a person comes to the hospital with a fever where he didn't disclose, that he didn't say anyone, I have taken 325 mg, but what happened? The fever has been not reduced for that person, right? So what clinical pharmacist can do is, a clinical pharmacist can take a medication history interview of the patient and he can note a point. Okay, patient has taken 325 mg. First time it worked for the patient. Second time it didn't work for the patient. So what happened here? We have to increase the dose. So by taking medication history interview, pharmacists can help in this way, right? And next one is patient counseling. Patient counseling means about the drugs, means how to take the drugs, or about the lifestyle modification. Like when you see obese patient who is having joint problems, right? What happens? He has to do certain exercises where he has to reduce the weight. And next one, that is lifestyle modification. Next one is how to take the drugs, right? And what are the exercises should be done? And we cannot go for heavy exercise again. We have to do a normal breathe, a simple exercise, those things, right? And about what foods can be taken, what foods cannot be taken, right? All these things can be explained by clinical pharmacist to the person, right? So that is about patient counseling. And next one is drug utilization evaluation. So drug utilization evaluation means it's a really a big process. So what happens? We'll be seeing in a setup, like in a hospital or in an organization, how the drugs is being used. Means supposing if patient came to you with fever, immediately you are starting with 325 mg or 650 mg, right? Or if patient comes to you with infection, upper respiratory tract infection, like generally for upper respiratory tract infection, we can use azithromycin. So what dose you are giving for adult? You are given 250 mg per day, or you are given 500 mg per day. So like this, all this, some of this kind of scenarios will collect together, and we will see the pattern of prescribing in an organization for a period of time, right? That is drug utilization evaluation. And next one is drug utilization review. So these two things, this drug utilization evaluation and drug utilization review, look similar, but how they differ is this drug utilization review don't have as much as importance as drug utilization evaluation. This one will be used for simple works. We are just going to review about the drugs, how it has been prescribed, but we don't have much interventions here in the review. Whereas in evaluation, we'll be having interventions like when there is a wrong thing is happening. Supposing, as I said, for upper respiratory tract infection, for adult, we can give 500 mg per day, right? Instead of that, if someone has prescribed only 250 mg per day, it may not be active for that patient, means the drug cannot show the proper therapeutic effect for the patient, right? So those kind of interventions will be there in evaluation, which won't be there in review. And last one, but not least one, is quality assurance of clinical pharmacy service. Means whatever works done by clinical pharmacists in providing patient care or in hospital, right? So those are appropriate or not. So appropriate or not in the sense, supposing, take one example of patient counseling, right? So when you are providing information for patient counseling, supposing take example of your prednisolone, right? Prednisolone. So this prednisolone generally should be taken on empty stomach, because it will absorb much better when you take an empty stomach. This information, from where you got this information, right? All those things will matter. Take example of some of anti-diabetic drugs. What is generally used medication for diabetes, which is well known, or metformin. So metformin generally, doctors will ask patients to take this metformin along with food, because the metformin is a gastric irritant. So when we take alone, like when you are not taking any food, when you take the tablet alone, it might irritate the stomach, which leads to a problem to the patient. So what they will do, they will ask them to take along with food. Okay, this kind of information, whether they are provided or not to the diabetic patients or to thyroid patients or to some other patients. So this thing will be recorded. These things will be evaluated. That is about your quality assurance of clinical pharmacy services. So that complete your second chapter. So we'll go for chapter number 3. So patient data analysis. So the term itself indicates patient data analysis, means here we are going to analyze the patient data. Like I've taken example of paracetamol and the patient 325 mg and 650 mg. So we'll evaluate the data of patient and we'll give a better output to the patient. So that is patient data analysis. So along with that work, we'll be seeing the terminologies, like medical terminologies and abbreviations. Take example of HbA1c. So what is HbA1c? Glycosylated hemoglobin, right? So if HbA1c is written in the chart, like patient data, and you don't know what is HbA1c, it will be a problem, right? So what we'll do in this chapter, we will see those kind of abbreviations and terminologies. Take example of hematemesis. Hematemesis means blood vomiting. When a person vomiting, if blood comes out, that is called as hematemesis. So this kind of abbreviations and terminologies will be seen in patient data analysis, right? That is third chapter. And fourth chapter is lab data interpretations. So this is one of I cannot say this is one important chapter. So everything is important and we have to focus much on this. So why did I wrote on? Here means separately, we should be vigilant and we should be on at any time when you're checking this lab data, right? So here we'll be seeing about hematological test, like blood reports to see an infection is there for person or not, or liver function test, means what are the different categories of the test can be performed, and if there is a problem with bilirubin, or if there is a problem with AST, ALT. So those kind of things. So how can we correlate? Supposing if there is a problem to AST and ALT, right, or SGOT and SGPT, the problem with injury to the hepatocyte means damage of the liver cells. But if there is increase in bilirubin, the two indirect bilirubin, right? So if there is indirect bilirubin, that may not be necessarily linked to the liver. It may be because of some other part, like when there is rapid hemolysis, those kind of things. So those kind of things we'll be seeing in liver function test. And renal function test, we'll be seeing the same thing, categories like upper renal infection, lower renal infections, or some other things, like when we see blood cells in the urine or proteins in the urine, proteinuria, all those things will be seen. Next one is thyroid function test. So most of the people are nowadays are having thyroid. So we'll be seeing the mechanism of thyroid hormones release, and really thyroid hormones has enormous functions in the body. So we'll be seeing it was a problem to the thyroid gland, or it is a problem of thalamus, which is there in the brain, which will regulate thyroid gland. Those things we'll be seeing. And next one is cardiac disorders. One of the important thing here I can say. So nowadays, most of the people are having cardiac problems, like because of obesity and all those things. So we'll be seeing how can we detect cardiac disorders by doing help with the help of certain biomarkers, or by doing ECG, EKG, those kind of things. Next one is fluid and electrolyte balance. Like generally, you will be seeing the patient as expert with sunstroke, or patients has some other fluid depletion. Means the electrolytes. Supposing when you see a person who is having a diarrhea, the person will become so lean and he cannot work, and his skin will become so bit rigid, right? So how to manage that one? Supposing take example of sodium. The normal levels of sodium is equivalent to 135 or 136 milliequivalents. So what will happen if it will reduce? What will happen if it will increase? And how to maintain that level? Right? This kind of thing, sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, chloride, all these things we'll be seeing here. The next one is microbial culture sensitivity test. Means, so when you go to a doctor with infection, so if in severe conditions, he will take a swab, like he will ask you to give urine examination, urine sample for culture, or he will ask you to give stool sample, or he will take your saliva stool sample. So how will we use those things to develop and to see which organism you are infected with, and which drug can be used to kill that organism in your body. So that one can be done with this thing, microbial culture sensitivity test. Next one is pulmonary function test, breathing. So what are the different breathing techniques and different parameters, different instruments like spirometry or body plethysmography, or carbon monoxide diffusion test can be seen to check the thing, like can be seen to check the thing in the sense, generally when we say this, what they call as, when patient cannot breathe, what might be the problem for the patient, right? Is a problem with lungs, or it's a problem with some other thing. So that thing can be checked here in pulmonary function test. So that comes up with fourth chapter. Going to fifth chapter. In fifth chapter, we are going to discover drug and poison information. So providing information about the drug, providing information about the drug, and providing information about the poison. Means what is the normal dose of a drug which is safe, and what is the poison dose of a drug. And apart from this, when you see most of the people, they will be saying the patient has committed suicide by taking sleeping tablets, or by doing some other things. So here what they will be doing is, they'll be checking, they'll be giving information about the antidotes. Supposing antidote for paracetamol, antidote, some people will drink kerosene or petrol, so antidote for it. So everything can be used here. So what we are going to discuss in drug and poison information is, first one is establishment and function. How to establish drug and poison information will be seeing, and approach for answering a drug information query. Means how to answer a drug information query. It's just not like just answering some maybe or might be some blah blah blah. So here what, when you get a question, there is a systematic approach of 7 to 8 steps. So each step you have to evaluate, and you have to do that step, right? And next one is evaluation of information and literature. Means whatever information you provided is appropriate or not, that should be taken care again. So here we'll be seeing that one. And next one is preparation of reports, written and verbal. Means, see, when we see about leaflets or pamphlets, so when you go to the hospital, they'll be giving certain pamphlets to you, where there'll be written instructions. This tablet should be taken 3 times, or this tablet should be taken 4 times. We should not take these foods. Everything you will prepare a leaflet like that. Okay, that's about your drug information, file information center. And next one is pharmacovigilance. So we have very good boom, or we can say very good importance for pharmacovigilance nowadays, right? So pharmacovigilance is nothing but it deals with adverse drug reactions, right? So here we'll be seeing scope, definition, and aims, and development of pharmacovigilance, and adverse drug reactions, the types, or how can we say a reaction happened is ADR or not. Like I said, there are similar terms: adverse drug reactions, adverse drug events, and side effects. We'll Okay, here role of pharmacist in ADR management. So previously we had a topic called as ADR management. So that there will be just seeing a brief, and here we'll be seeing how to avoid ADRs in the before it comes, how to avoid it, right? So that we'll be seeing here. That's a chapter. Next one is about communication skills, patient counseling techniques, patient medication history interviews, and case presentation. So here, all these things you have seen already previously. So that is abbreviation, means just an introduction about it. So here we'll be seeing in detail like communication skills for patient counseling, right? How to counsel a patient. Supposing when you take example of a patient who is having this respiratory problem, breathing problem, right? So when you give a inhaler to the patient, metadose inhaler to the patient, and you'll ask them to use, he don't know how to use it, right? And if you ask him to keep just in your mouth and press, I think he will do it. What happens here? Remember this point. The patient will keep the inhaler or the rota inhaler in the mouth and he will press it, but he don't close the lips. So what happens? The medicine will escape out, right? So here the pharmacist need techniques and skills to say, keep the inhaler in your mouth, close your lips tightly, then you take a puff, then you press the nozzle so that the medicament or the drug will go into the body and it will act. So after doing that one, the patient has to clean his mouth to avoid certain condition like gingival hyperplasia, where you will be seeing swelling of your gums and all. So to say these things, patient clinical pharmacist needs certain skills and techniques. So that one will be seeing. And PMHA we already discussed previously. So case presentation means, so when a patient came to you, or when you have a case, or when you want to explain a patient condition to the doctor or someone else, so there is proper format to it. So that one we'll be discussing here. Which one should be present first? What are the criteria? What are the information should be kept, like marital status and history of the family history, like patient, their parents were having diabetes, like these kind of things will come into offspring quite often. So those kind of things could be kept here. That is chapter number 7. And next one is pharmaceutical care concept. So it is a full pack, in the sense full, when I say full pack, so it means how each patient should be taken care in a hospital from the time he came to outpatient till he discharges, even after discharging until the disease got cured. Supposing the patient won't be kept in hospital until he completely cured the thing. Supposing generally the patient will be discharged when the patient condition is stable, and when doctors think okay fine, there is no much problem, he can take care in their home also. Right? So why I'm saying this one is, so when if we want to keep the patient in hospital until he completely get cured of it, it's not an possible thing. Supposing patient came to you with neurological disorders, we cannot cure it completely. Our patient came to with hypertension, we cannot remove hypertension from the patient's body. Our diabetes general example, we cannot completely kill or eradicate the diabetes from the patient. So if patient came to you with a severe diabetic complications or high levels of glucose, sugar levels in the body, you can reduce the limits, you can bring back those limits to normal, and then you can send the patient home where he can take care. But you have to follow up. Once even you send the patient to home, your work don't end there. The clinical pharmacist need to have a follow up. He has to call and he has to inquire, and if needed, the clinical pharmacist should go to his house and he has to counsel there. He has to check the patient condition. Okay, that is pharmaceutical care concept. And next one is critical evaluation of biomedical literature. Means, so till now I was speaking about information, providing information, this dose, that how to take, what to take, when to take. So from where we are getting the information? Supposing if you got information from certain normal, generally using Wikipedia, or you got information from certain standard textbooks, or you got information from certain standard organizations like WHO, Indian Pharmacopoeia, British National Formulary, or United States Pharmacopoeia. So based upon the site or from where you got the information, there will be a specific importance and the standard will be there. So now you have to set that standard and you have to see the information is right or not. You have to see the information right or not. So here you will be evaluating the information from wherever you got. Okay. Generally, this one will be seeing from the articles, research articles, right? So if you want to, generally in research articles, we'll be having a new information, but again 50-50, it may be right, it may not be right again. So but if you have a full of n number of articles which is saying that is right, then it will be right. Okay, so that one here we'll evaluate the information, whatever we got is right or not. Generally in biomedical literature means research articles like that. So coming to last topic, medication errors. So the name itself indicates errors in medication, means it's not about preparation, it's about taking it. Supposing doctor prescribed medication, the patient is not taken, he forgot to take, that is an error. Doctor prescribed the medicine, a caretaker has not given to the patient, or a nurse has not been given to the patient, that is an error. And he don't know how to, suppose take example of your lozenges, right? So lozenges means generally you don't swallow it, you'll keep in your mouth, and you will just keep it in your mouth so that it will dissolve and it will reduce the things. Take example of your nitrates, nitroglycerins, which will be given to the patients who comes to you with the angina. So they have to keep that one, that medicine to reduce the angina, to reduce the pain just below the tongue. They don't swallow it. So this kind of, suppose instead of keeping below the tongue, if he swallows it, what happens? It won't work properly, right? So this kind of medication errors or drug related problems we'll be seeing in this chapter. So this is about your today's class. We will see in upcoming class what next. Okay.